I stood at the entrance of the wedding hall with my hands clenched around the small gift box I had bought on discount, already wishing I had never come. The place glittered with chandeliers and white roses, everything screaming luxury and celebration. My sister's name was printed in gold on a massive banner, followed by the words "perfect match." It felt like a joke meant only for me. I was the older sister, yet I had always been treated like an afterthought. Growing up, my parents never hid their disappointment. My report cards were met with silence while my sister's average grades were celebrated like victories. When relatives visited, she was asked to sing or dance, while I was sent to the kitchen to help my mother. "You're not like her," my father used to say, shaking his head. I learned early that love in my family had conditions and I never met them. As I walked further inside, conversations slowed, eyes moved toward me, then quickly away. I felt it immediately, the absence beside me. No partner, no arm to hold, no one to shield me from what I already knew was coming. My mother spotted me first. Her smile froze for a fraction of a second before she leaned toward another woman and whispered something. Laughter followed. My sister stood at the center of the room in her white gown, glowing, admired, adored. When she saw me, her lips curled slightly, not quite a smile. She looked me up and down, her gaze lingering on my simple dress. "You came alone?" she asked loudly, tilting her head. "I thought maybe this time you'd surprise us." I opened my mouth, then closed it. Explaining myself had never changed anything before. The ceremony passed like a blur. I sat at the back, listening to applause, cheers, and speeches about family, love, and support. Every word felt sharp. At the reception, wine flowed freely, and so did cruel jokes. An uncle asked if I was still waiting for fate. A cousin suggested I try dating apps. Each laugh chipped away at me. Then my father stood up, glass raised, already flushed from alcohol. "I want to say something about my eldest," he announced, his voice booming. The room quieted. My heart began to race. She's always been difficult. And as you can see, she couldn't even find a date for her own sister's wedding. Laughter erupted. Someone clapped. My sister covered her mouth, pretending to be embarrassed, but her eyes shone. "Enough is enough," my father continued, stepping toward me. "You bring shame wherever you go." Before I could react, his hands shoved hard against my shoulders. I fell backward into the decorative fountain. Cold water swallowed me as gasps turned into cheers. The impact knocked the breath from my lungs. My dress clung to me, heavy and soaked, my hair plastered to my face. I pushed myself up, water dripping from my chin. People were clapping, laughing. Recording, I looked at them, my family, my blood, and felt something inside me go still. I smiled, even as my hands shook. "Remember this moment," I said softly. They laughed harder, unaware that everything was about to change. I sat on the cold stone edge of the fountain while water continued to drip from my clothes, each drop echoing louder than the laughter that still floated through the air. No one offered me a towel. No one asked if I was hurt. A waiter hesitated nearby, then looked away when my mother shook her head. I wasn't surprised. I had learned long ago not to expect kindness from people who shared my blood. As the noise blurred into the background, memories rose uninvited. I remembered the night I left home with one suitcase and $50 hidden in my shoe. My father had told me not to come back until I became someone worth looking at. I cried on the bus ride out of town, staring at the reflection of my own face in the dark window, wondering if he was right. The years that followed were brutal. I worked double shifts at diners, cleaned offices after midnight, and lived in apartments so small I could touch both walls at once. Some nights I fell asleep hungry, my phone silent, no one to check if I was safe. Yet even in that loneliness, I felt something unfamiliar growing inside me: freedom. For the first time, no one was telling me I was a failure. I met him on one of the worst days of my life. I had just been laid off and was sitting on a park bench, trying not to cry in public. He asked if he could sit beside me. His voice was gentle, his smile hesitant, like he didn't want to scare me away. We talked for hours about nothing important and everything that mattered. He didn't ask why I was sad. He just stayed. He never tried to impress me. He wore plain clothes, drove an old car, and listened more than he spoke. When I told him about my family, he didn't interrupt or judge. He simply said, "You deserved better." No one had ever said that to me before. We built a life quietly. Coffee dates turned into late-night conversations. Late nights turned into shared dreams. When I finally learned the truth, that the man who held my hand on crowded streets owned companies I had only read about, I laughed. It didn't change how he looked at me, and that mattered more than anything else. We married without announcements or applause. No family, no guests, just vows whispered under open sky. I didn't invite my parents. I didn't invite my sister. They didn't earn that part of me. He understood without asking. Back at the wedding, I felt my phone vibrate in my trembling hand. A single message lit up the screen. "I'm here." I exhaled slowly, my heart pounding. Across the room, my sister was still laughing, leaning into her new husband. My father had already turned away, satisfied. They thought this was the end of my story, another moment they could mock and forget. I stood up, water pooling at my feet, and smoothed my soaked dress. I didn't need to shout. I didn't need to cry. For the first time in my life, I wasn't alone, not really. 20 minutes felt like a lifetime, but I waited, knowing that when he walked in, the laughter would stop. And when it did, they would finally see what they had never bothered to look for. The music was still playing when the first sound cut through the air, low, steady, unmistakably expensive. Conversations faltered as guests turned toward the entrance. Another engine followed, then another until the laughter thinned into confused murmurs. I stood near the fountain, ignored and dripping, watching curiosity replace cruelty on their faces. Black cars lined the driveway like a quiet command. Men in tailored suits stepped out first, scanning the area with calm precision. The wedding planner rushed forward, flustered, whispering urgently into her phone. Someone near the bar gasped, recognizing a face from a magazine cover. A ripple of tension spread through the crowd. Then he appeared. He walked in without hurry, his presence alone enough to still the room. His expression was controlled, but I knew him well enough to see the storm beneath it. His eyes found me instantly, and everything else disappeared. He crossed the distance as if no one else existed, ignoring the stares, the whispers, the sudden silence. When he reached me, he didn't speak right away. He took off his jacket and wrapped it around my shoulders, his hands warm and steady. "My love," he said quietly, cupping my face, his thumb brushing away a drop of water. "Are you hurt?" I shook my head, though my throat tightened. That simple question, spoken with genuine concern, almost broke me. Behind him, the room erupted in frantic whispers. Someone said his name out loud, disbelief heavy in their voice. Another guest pulled out their phone, scrolling furiously, eyes widening. Color drained from my mother's face. My sister's smile trembled, then collapsed entirely. My father stood frozen, his glass slipping from his fingers and shattering on the floor. He straightened slowly and turned to face them, his arms still wrapped protectively around me. His gaze moved over the crowd, calm but piercing. "Who," he asked, his voice even, "did this to my wife?" No one answered. The silence was suffocating. My father stepped forward, forcing a laugh that cracked midway. "There's been a misunderstanding," he said. "Families joke. She's always been sensitive." My husband's eyes narrowed. "Jokes don't leave bruises," he replied, glancing at my scraped arm. He looked back at me, regret flickering across his face. "I should have been here sooner." "It's not your fault," I whispered. For once, I meant it. The wedding planner returned, pale and trembling, murmuring apologies. The venue manager followed, voice shaking as he greeted my husband with far too much respect. The truth was spreading now, impossible to stop. Guests began to stand, unease replacing arrogance. The applause from earlier felt like a distant shame. My sister approached hesitantly, her dress suddenly too bright, too fragile. "I didn't know," she said, tears pooling. "I didn't think he would. You laughed," I said softly. She flinched as if struck. My husband tightened his grip on my hand. "This event," he said, addressing the room, "exists because I allowed it to." His tone wasn't threatening, just factual. "And it can end just as easily." A collective breath was held. My father's confidence crumbled, his face gray with realization. Deal's connections, pride, everything he valued was slipping through his fingers. I met their eyes one last time, seeing fear where certainty once lived. The fountain behind me no longer felt cold. I had endured the worst of them. What remained was truth, standing beside me, impossible to ignore. The silence stretched until it became unbearable. No one dared to clap now. No one laughed. The same people who had cheered as I fell into the fountain stood rigid, eyes lowered, suddenly desperate to be invisible. My husband didn't raise his voice or make a scene. He didn't need to. Power, I had learned, was quiet. My father found his voice first, though it trembled. "We didn't know who you were," he said, forcing a smile toward my husband. "If we had, that's the point." I interrupted. My own voice surprised me, steady and clear. All eyes turned to me, and for once, no one looked away. "You shouldn't have needed to know who he was to treat me like a human being." My mother stepped forward, tears streaking her makeup. "We were worried about you," she whispered. "We thought you were alone." "I was alone," I replied, "and you made sure of it." My husband said nothing as the venue manager nervously approached, murmuring about contracts and sponsorships. I watched my father's face as understanding dawned. The hall, the decorations, the catering, everything existed because of the man standing beside me. The wedding my sister had bragged about for months was built on a foundation that no longer supported her. My sister began to cry openly now, clutching her dress as if it might save her. "I never meant for this to happen," she said. "You were always so strong. I thought you didn't care." I looked at her, really looked at her, and felt the last of my anger drain away. "I cared," I said quietly. "I just learned to stop showing it to people who enjoyed hurting me." My husband finally spoke again. "We're leaving," he said. There was no threat in his words, only finality. He nodded to his team, and I knew what that meant. The consequences would come later, in boardrooms and quiet phone calls, not in front of an audience that didn't deserve the spectacle. As we walked toward the exit, my father called my name. I stopped but didn't turn around. "Please," he said, his voice breaking. "Don't do this." I closed my eyes for a moment, breathing in, breathing out. "You already did," I said. Then I kept walking. Outside, the night air was cool against my damp skin. My husband draped his jacket more securely around my shoulders and guided me toward the car. Cameras flashed behind us, but I didn't flinch. For the first time, their attention couldn't hurt me. Inside the car, I finally allowed myself to cry, not from pain but from release. He pulled me close, pressing his forehead to mine. "You were brave," he said softly. "No," I answered, smiling through tears. I was free. As the car drove away, the wedding lights faded into the distance. I didn't look back. The moment I had asked them to remember would stay with them forever, but it no longer defined me. I had survived their laughter, their cruelty, their neglect, and I had walked away with everything they never believed I deserved.